Hello and welcome to the Devil's Bit podcast, Ireland's fastest growing Manchester United fan podcast. And this week you're here with myself, Rudy, and Glenn. Ray is on holidays, but Glenn, we're still here holding the fort. How are you keeping, man?
Yeah, good, Roddy. Yeah, just a little bit under the weather. Yeah, got that vaccine there last night. I did that Johnson & Johnson one, so sort of took
What, down the
effect.
pharmacy?
Got out of the pharmacy, yeah. You just go up, you're only in and out. Well, you go in, sit down, fill in a form, and then they give it to you. You wait 15 minutes, you go home, but woke up this morning all achy and all, sweating and everything, so I feel much better now after taking my ibuprofen and all that, but it's something else, I have to say.
For such a small thing, like you wouldn't think it had that bad effect, but at the same time, that stuff happens with the flu vaccine, Glenn.
Yeah.
People get the flu vaccine annually and come down with flu-like symptoms afterwards. So I'm guessing you're just experiencing the same.
Yeah, no, look, it's just to be honest, there's not the jinx out. Like I haven't had the flu in about a year and a half, 2 years, like, because the flu's just gone out of existence, isn't it? But just the flu, you know yourself, when you get the pains in the back of your legs and all, like, do you know what I mean? It was just, you basically just need to rest up. Do you know what I mean? I think your woman should have explained that a little bit better to me, to be honest. Do you know, that way, like. But no, other than that, all good, yeah.
Happy days, man. It's good to get it, I suppose, especially with the restrictions and that lifting a bit. It's good to have the
vaccine. Well, look, you know yourself, you're sort of being made to get it. If you don't get it, you're not allowed to do anything, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of dining in and out. But just before we move on, now they're talking about not letting kids and all into, you know, restaurants and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's crazy what's going on at the minute. There doesn't seem to be any end to it at the moment.
Yeah, and there's no set direction either. But yeah, listen, if people want to learn about the vaccine, they can go anywhere else because we're not talking too much about it. Yeah. Enough said. So no flip-flopping about, as I always say, Glenn. Let's get straight into it. And I suppose I want to start this week by talking about that England final. It's a few days later now. The dust is kind of settled, but still, what a game. And I'm guessing you were watching it.
Yeah, of course, Roddy. Yeah, of course I was watching.
Because we were texting.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was you have to take your hat off to England, I think. There was a lot of pressure on them going into this tournament because they were basically hosting it. And they done well to get as far as they did, really, didn't they? But look, ultimately they fell short, didn't they? And football is not coming home. Instead it went to Rome, as they're saying at the moment. But unlucky for England. You'd feel sorry for the likes of Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw and that, you know what I mean, who really came into their own in this tournament. You know what I mean? I'm hoping the likes of Harry Maguire now takes that form that he played through the whole tournament into the new season for us. But great game. I don't know, like, a lot of people are saying that, you know, Southgate got his tactics wrong and all that sort of stuff, but I think that it's the only way he could have really went. You know what I mean? He done things his own way in this tournament from the first game right up until the final. Just, I think maybe the decisions during the game weren't what they should have been. But I don't think you can hold that against him, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? He's revived a nation, really, in terms of on the pitch. You know what I mean?
Oh, big time. It kind of reminded me of our last game in the Europa League. Like, Ollie was the decisions were inconsistent with previous decisions, and I saw that in Southgate, like Grealish coming on quite late in the game.
His changes already were mad, yeah. You're bang on the money there. Like, do you know, when you look back on the game and you think about, like, they went ahead inside the first 10 minutes. What a goal by Luke Shaw! You know what I mean? It was great. It was great play all around, really, by the England team. I think a lot of people forget that it was a nervous start by England because that goal came from a corner from Italy. And the corner came from Harry Maguire passing the ball back to Jordan Pickford, but he didn't actually give it to Pickford. He knocked it out for a corner. When the ball comes in from the corner, Harry Maguire clears it, drops out to make some mount. He gives it to Luke Shaw. He gives it to Harry Kane. And we discussed already last week that, you know, we thought that Harry Kane would create problems if he dropped deep. And he did. Yeah. He got on the ball, and when there was an overload then on the right-hand side with Trippier and Walker. And you'd have to say, with Trippier and Walker starting, it was definitely the right call. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially with Trippier starting, because he seems to be a big player for England in big games. Like, he scored in the 2018 semi-final against Croatia, and then he put the ball in for Luke Shaw to score, and what a goal! I was delighted, and to be honest with you, I actually, I don't want to say I celebrated, but I did cheer when I went in when I seen it was Luke Shaw, because I mean it's
what a finish.
Half volley. I mean, how many players do you see doing that? Do you know what I mean? And square. The fact that I went in, I was a great goal, and you know what it done, Rory? It just opened the game up. Do you know what I mean? It knew Italy couldn't be cautious. England were there on top, and then it was intriguing to see how England were going to go about, the next 90 minutes, say, because it was 2 minutes into the game. And I thought for the first 20-25 minutes that England were the better team, and they probably should have and could have scored more. But then after that 25-minute mark, they just sort of dropped back. You know what I mean? And they couldn't really get out of their own half. And I know we set up in, say, a 3-5-2 formation. But when you look at it then after the 25-minute mark, it was 5 at the back for England.
Yeah,
and they couldn't get out.
Just on Shaw there, I'll go back to that. There was an air of confidence about Shaw, and that goal, like you could really see it. There was no hesitation in where that ball was coming and what he was going to do with it. You might see some players, will they take a touch, won't they take a touch, and they might scuff it towards the goal. But he knew exactly what was happening.
It felt like destiny. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Because he started that off.
I was like, this is it. I thought the momentum was with them. And I was like, Italy are going to get absolutely slaughtered here because they were shook, Glenn. For the next few minutes, they didn't know what to do with themselves. But England didn't capitalise on that.
They couldn't control Roddy. They couldn't control Harry Kane. They couldn't control Harry Kane. They were terrified at Raheem Sterling's pace.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they as you said, they didn't know what to do. It was England's downfall really in that first half. As I said, the second part of the first half, they just dropped off. It's like they stopped believing in what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? They ran out of ideas, and then we're just like, we'll sit in and hold off. Maybe get to the half time and see where we go from there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and it was very surprising, Glenn, because I suppose you might say England fell off, but decisions like that come from the bench to hold back that much. Like England have such strong power going forward. You see Harry Kane bursting out the back, and you see the pace of the two wing backs. Then you have
Maguire, bursting out in the back,
yeah. Oh, sorry, Jesus Christ. What did I say? Fucking but yeah, so I think that they fell back so early. Well, it was down to a decision that was made, because if they immediately after they scored that goal in the next 5 minutes, I thought they were on for number 2, and I thought that's it, the game's cleaned up. But then they just stopped, Glenn, and it was like someone had said, "Just hold up, boys. Let's just take it easy. We'll get them on the counter." But that counter never came because
I don't think they wanted to burn out either, Rory. That's what I think fatigue might have came into a little bit, because you look at the team that started, it's basically the team that he's picked through the whole competition. And maybe that was probably a factor, that they didn't want to burn themselves out and have to be, backs against the wall then in the second half. But sometimes when you start dropping back and holding out, it's hard to get out of that. And I don't think England cope with that very well. Do you know what I mean? As we've said, Italy were definitely rattled. Keane was giving away a couple of fouls and everything, like, do you know what I mean? They didn't want any of the England players being able to turn on the ball or anything. But I suppose, like, the thing I couldn't wrap my head around was just, as you said, was the changes. And I know in the second half, Jordan Henderson was brought on, and I can't remember now who he was brought on for, to be honest, but his job would have been to come on and probably control the midfield for England. Do you know what I mean? Keep the ball moving. I don't think he did that. He came on. He couldn't get on the ball, and when he did get on the ball, he wasn't doing his job really. I thought he kept giving the ball away, and then I couldn't understand as well why Mason Mount was left on the pitch for as long as he was on the pitch for. I don't think he done anything.
Yeah, really. You said that, and you could see he was starting to make mistakes.
Yeah,
or just not going anywhere with the ball. And Glenn just said there, so Bonucci got the goal on 67 minutes for Italy. And then Saka came on straight after that. So obviously Southgate realised they need a bit more pace to get up now.
Did Saka not start? No. Did Saka start?
No. Saka didn't start. No, it was Trippier. He came on for Trippier. And then a few minutes later, Henderson came on for Rice. Where I would have said, yeah, Mount should have come off at that point, or even Mount should have come off for Saka. He could have switched things around to make something work there because it just wasn't happening for Mount.
No, and
I think bringing Saka on that point with Saka's performances in previous games was too late.
Yeah, maybe Rory, maybe you could be right there.
Because that team is now in a circumstance that they haven't found themselves in. Yeah, they did against Denmark, but against a team as good as Italy, with those players who had that experience, they hadn't come up against that. And you're sticking Saka on, like, great player and all. He is young. I think you're asking for a lot of him at that point.
Yeah, and the thing is, Roddy, was what I couldn't really wrap my hand around. I've nothing against that, the Saka at all. I think he's a great tournament and he's going to be an unbelievable player. But if the likes of, say, Jadon Sancho on the bench that played one game against Ukraine and done very well, a big game player, really. I mean, he's been playing in the Champions League and everything. He's been playing in big games in Germany and all. So why not bring a player like that on and have him come on and try and change the game? Do you know what I mean? Not that Saka couldn't do it. But I just felt like, why isn't the likes of Jadon Sancho coming on? Why did he only start one game in the whole competition? Why did he only come on in one game in the final? Do you know what I mean? But you're talking about Bonucci's goal, Roddy. England defensively have looked solid all tournament.
Yeah.
But when you look at the goal from the corner, they didn't get the first ball, England. They didn't get the second ball. They didn't get the third ball. And they didn't get the fourth ball. That ball bounced in that box 4 times before Bonucci put that in. Now, don't get me wrong. It was a great save by Pickford from Verratti's header. There's nothing he could do. He pushed it onto the post. It goes behind him. Bonucci's in. But you look at that and you say to yourself, England at the beginning of the tournament, I think they'd 5 clean sheets, didn't they, in a row or something?
Yeah, they did.
You look at that, I think they'd be very disappointed in the way they conceded that goal. And you could tell from there on in, really, I felt like that England would be lucky if they were to come away with the win. Because the whole game was changed before that goal. There was a couple of incidents where Italy was shown that they were a real threat. Chiesa forced a good save from Pickford.
Yeah.
And you could see Pickford was getting a little bit anxious with his defenders. And probably telling them, like, Jeremy, we have to get up the pitch.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And they paid the price, the ultimate price in the end.
Yeah, like you said, you could feel it coming, though. You could feel a goal coming.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at it as well, the Italy fans are behind that goal, and it's like they were sucking that ball in. That's the way it felt. You know what I mean? Like, there was no stop. There was nothing that was going to stop that ball going in at that particular moment. I felt, you know what I mean? As I said, the ball, it shouldn't be bouncing around 4 times. But, you know what I mean? If you're Harry Kane and you're on the line and you're looking at that ball going in, what are you thinking? Because he was the one on the line. I know he couldn't get there, but like, how do you compose yourself? Do you know what I mean? And there was a time where he was telling, Cameron went to him, he's telling him, relax, breathe or whatever. But I think England were just a little bit too relaxed in that second half, inviting the pressure on from me. It just didn't make any sense, because the danger was all for England or for Italy was always England's pace. And I don't think England were able to get down into the game enough, which was a pity.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, Glenn. And then I was kind of disappointed that Grealish didn't come on. I think he's kind of like the unsung hero for England, really. If you look at maybe Wes Hoolahan for Ireland, it's a similar situation where he's probably your most skillful player with the ball in the centre midfield, who can take the ball, bring it up front on his own, and then provide for the forwards. And when he did come on, you saw that England had more possession in their half, with possession around the box, and he did get a few balls in here and there to Saka, Sterling, I think it was. And I don't know why he wasn't coming on at 70 minutes instead of Saka or Henderson. Like, Henderson's not that type of player. Henderson came on, he didn't do much, Glenn. He lost the ball.
He was there to try, Roddy. Henderson was there to try and control the game. That's what he was brought on for, and he couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? I think people would say, because this is a United podcast, that this is me being biased about a Liverpool player, but I'm not. I just don't think. I think he's out of his depth in them situations. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously he's more comfortable playing for Liverpool. You know what I mean? Like, he's a bit more of an influence, let's say, in the Liverpool dressing rooms because he's the captain. But I think he was shown to be out of his depth in that game against the Italians. Do you know what I mean? It was the wrong change to bring on. Like, there's more better options.
After the goal showed that England were in control. But then, like you said, after 25 5 minutes. It was reaction. They were reacting to what you were giving them, and then they scored, so they had to react. And then all the 2 subs come on within 5 minutes. I mean, that's not how you play a final match, like.
But
you know what I mean?
They were Royce for Henderson is like for like. Didn't Henderson come on for Royce? Yeah, so that's like for like. And then you've Saka coming on for Trippier. All right, you know what I mean? You're going a little bit attack minded. But as we've said, it's very hard for England to come back out on the offensive after being penned in for as much as they were from the second half of the first half and then into the second half. Then, do you know what I mean? To try and get up the pitch, and they didn't do it enough. Do you know what I mean? And it just cost them. And it's a pity it did, Roddy, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because there's players there, like, I mean, there's a likability about England now, I think. Player-wise. Do you know what I mean? Like, as I said, like, you look at Harry Maguire, you look at Shaw, look at even Trippier, like, do you know what I mean? I think he had a decent tournament.
Harry Kane as well.
Yeah, Harry Kane done very well, yeah. But again, like, Harry Kane to me at the end looked to be out on his feet. And I know that you want to have Harry Kane on the pitch when you're taking your penalties. But England were definitely looking for penalties. Do you know what I mean? That was the plan then, to go in and try and win it on the penalties. Which,
well, Harry Kane's penalty against Denmark was woeful.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not gonna if Harry. But I mean, if you take Harry Kane off when it's looking to be going into penalties, there's going to be some serious questions to be asked. Although Gareth Southgate has done it his own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I suppose the question then was those decisions to bring on Rashford and Sancho with literally 30 seconds left of the game. Obviously, to take the penalties and then put them in that position. There's been a lot said. I think Roy Keane said that even the players shouldn't have been letting them young lads go before them. But obviously, Gareth Southgate had his heart set on his list, and his list was these 3 young lads are going to make history for England.
Well, again, Rory, bring it like we've seen in the Europa League final. Ollie brought on Mata and Telles to take the penalties, and it worked out because both of them scored. But you look at, say, the likes of Sterling, who didn't step up to take a penalty for whatever reason. Obviously, we don't know if he was going to take a penalty later on the shootout, but he didn't step up. So if he wasn't going to step up and all this was arranged that these players were going to take penalties, because that's what Southgate was saying, he took the brunt of it, really. Why not bring on Rashford for Sterling with 10 minutes to go, or Sancho for Sterling for 10 minutes to go? They're on the pitch. They get the feel for the game. You know what I mean? It's obviously, it must be terrifying to come on with 30 seconds to go. No, you're only coming on to take a penalty with the weight of a nation on you. Why not give them 10, 15 minutes to try and get a feel for the game and probably try and go and win it? Because I think they would have, like the likes of Rashford, who was obviously struggling a little bit, or even Sancho, would have added a different dynamic. Do you know what I mean? Because the likes of them, fresh legs, Sancho especially, we've seen it. He likes to get on the ball and run at players.
Yeah.
That would have had the Italians panicked a little bit.
I think he would have thrived in that situation. Now, Rashford even said it. I think he came out with a tweet or a comment somewhere saying, he's had a bad season. It's obvious, but he'll pick himself up. It is obvious he's had a bad season, and I think it was in the Europa League final afterwards. You saying, I'm only 23. It's like he was defending himself before, like, he even got criticised. And then you see what he's done in his personal life, like kind of going out against the field for children who need it. I'm not sure the title of that campaign. But he's taken a lot on this year, and then you put COVID on top of that, and then the stress of nearly playing every game for Manchester United.
Yeah, well, what's after happening is, Roddy, is like, Rashford's at the putting himself in a situation where he's saying that he's going to be taking, he's going to be going and getting surgery done. He's going to be probably out till October. So, we've run him into the ground. That's what we've done. A lot of people are saying he probably shouldn't have went to the Euros if he was feeling like that. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when are the Euros or a World Cup or whatever going to be held in England again? Is it ever going to happen in his career span? Probably not.
Yeah.
When Rashford first broke into the England side, he had Gareth Southgate's trust. And I'm not saying he doesn't have it, but obviously, there was stuff going on in training where he's not 110% fit, or even, I wouldn't even say he's 80% fit. But You look at these decisions, Rory, to go up, step up and take a penalty. Anyone in that situation that steps up is brave, whether you score or you don't. But for the likes of Rashford, for Sancho, and for Saka, that will stay with them now for the rest of their careers. Whether it's people keep bringing it up, or the fact that, when they're alone with their own thoughts, or when they're looking back on stuff, they'll always wonder, what if? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Southgate, he missed in Euro 96 his penalty.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I think he could have handled that a little bit better. And that's why I was saying maybe have the likes of Rashford and Sancho on for the last 10 minutes just to give them a feel for the atmosphere. Because it's obviously different sitting on the bench to coming on and playing. Do you know what I mean? That's the only criticism I'd have towards Southgate.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to blame any of the players for that. You know what I mean?
I think his penalty selection was grand, actually. Those three lads obviously score penalties. And I think if it had worked, everyone would be congratulating him as what a great decision to have the young lads play or take the penalties.
Yeah, it was. Do you know what, Roddy? It's like it all caught up with him in the end. He as I said, he done everything his own way from the beginning of the tournament all the way through it, right up to the final. The fact that he went to a three at the back against Germany and all, people were saying, what's he doing? We're going too defensive. They got through that. You look at this now with maybe bringing Rashford and Sancho on to take penalties. It just backfired. I think Rashford stepping up is not a big deal because we've seen him do that for us. You look back at that game against PSG, stepping up the last minute, sent us through. Sancho taking one, I don't think that's a big deal either. 21, he's played in big games already. Saka, that's the most difficult one to probably wrap your head around because again, you've Sterling there. I know Roy Keane was talking about Grealish and saying you don't want to let these younger players step up, but so what about Sterling? Why was he letting Saka go up there? I mean, why not just turn around and say, I'll walk up? I do believe that Raheem Sterling hid during the penalty shootout. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't blame him because
he's missed a few for Man City on the trot.
Yeah, but Marty, I wouldn't blame him for it because when Saka missed that penalty and obviously Italy won it, you knew straight away what was going to happen to that young fella. You knew what was going to happen to Rashford. You knew what was going to happen to Sancho. You knew that they were going to be abused. And that's it turned out to be that way. So maybe I'm thinking Sterling didn't step up because, he didn't want to face that kind of backlash.
But
which is right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it's not in his name, but you'd still feel it because it's coming at you as well. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some sort of abuse online for him as well. I mean, what's happening now is it's horrible, man.
Look, come here, Rory. There's, as I said, the England fans let themselves down, and they let the team down really with their behaviour through the final itself. If you look at what they were doing, storming the stadium. You know what I mean? Intimidating some of the players' wives and families and all, trying to take the seats off them when they got into the stadium and all.
Oh, were they?
That's what was going on, yeah. You look at Wembley Way, Sky have a bit of a studio set up on Wembley Way, they did, and you had Danny Mills there, and you had Martin Tyler, there's fans throwing cans at Martin Tyler. He was one of the best commentators in the game, do you know what I mean? And we'll go down as that when he does step down. What's the sense in that? You look at Leicester Square, what they were doing in Leicester Square, wrecking the place, tearing people out of their cars and everything. Do you know what I mean? Wrecking cars that are driving through and all. So when you look at the abuse that, and then you look at it as well. Reports came out already that Harry Maguire's dad damaged his ribs and all, and stampede in the stadium and everything. Do you know what I mean? So the England fans let themselves down, and you hear it. I was listening to TalkSport. And I was listening to, the White and Jordan show. And Simon Jordan was saying that it's a minority. Well, I don't think it's a minority at all. We've seen this from England fans through God knows how many tournaments. And if it's a minority, to me, you're saying it's basically the same fans. Do you know what I mean? We're at a stage now where you have to just say it how it is. And, England fans are the worst fans out there when it comes to international football. Do you know what I mean? So
behavior, yeah.
Stop. I mean, you look at what happened in 2018 in Russia. Like they were absolutely better around in Russia because the Russians were just like think you're gonna come over here and
Yeah,
start.
now the Russians have their own reputation, and I think a
Yeah,
few other Eastern European countries would have that kind of tough kind of hooliganism about them. So, like England definitely isn't the only country that has that kind of
yeah,
attitude.
but Rory, they've had this for years, though, man. That's the thing, and yeah, as I'm saying, like my take on it is that it's probably not a popular take, and there's probably English people out there that turn around and have a different opinion and probably put me by to it. But from what I've seen, from when I'm watching football, it's not a minority. Happens all the time. Everywhere you go, there's trouble. I mean, it's the first time there's been a spectacle like that if you're an English fan for 55 years,
Mm.
and they absolutely ruined it. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about that. Like, wrecking the stadium, wrecking the streets. They were drinking from 3 o'clock on Wembley Way till 12 o'clock that night. No, don't get me wrong. Everyone's up for a laugh. Everyone wants to, enjoy the moment and all. But it always turns into violence when it's the England fans. And it's not a minority. It's the majority of them. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like where I'm going with these is when you look at Saka missing that penalty, you knew straight away he's going to be subjected to racial abuse. There's no doubt about it. And that's a sad thing. Everyone knew that. I'd say the commentators did, we did, the England players knew it straight away. Like, this is not going to end well for a 19-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 21-year-old. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, when you look at the likes of when they do something good in their careers, Rashford, Sancho, Saka, there's nothing said about them. Do you know what I mean? But some of the stuff that was put out there was shocking. And you'd have to look at it and say to yourself, what are the social media, the likes of Facebook, who run Instagram, who run Twitter, what are they doing? Do you know what I mean? What are they going to do to stop this? It's way too easy for me or you to have a Facebook account and then set up 3 or 4 other accounts and abuse people. And I think that when you look at racial abuse, I don't think there's much money to be made. There's not much. There's no money to be made off that. You're a social media company, so they just turn a blind eye to it. If you put a song up on Facebook or on social media or a film clip, it's copyrighted. It's down straight away. But when it's a racial tweet or an Instagram post or whatever, it's left there for weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like, without anything said. And it's only when it's a high-profile player that you actually heard about it, really. So if it's Rashford, you'll hear about it, which, it has to get out there that it's happening. But what about them players that are not playing in the Premier League, that are not playing on the international level, that are playing in the Championship or League 1 or League 2? What about when they're getting racially abused in the stands or, private messages sent to them through their social media accounts? The guy's listening to an interview with Wilfred Zaha there last year, plays for Crystal Palace. And he was saying to Darren Lewis, the journalist at the time, and he's a black man as well, and he's really up for, ending racism and all in the game, which is great. But he was saying to Zaha was saying to him that he gets up to 50 messages a day, I think, or maybe a week of being racially abused. He was saying that black players are afraid to click into their private messages because they're afraid of the abuse that they face. And there's no backlash to it, Rory. That's the thing. Like, there's no one being held accountable for it. I know, there was an incident there a while ago with Ian Wright, and I think it was actually an Irish young player that, racially abused them. They got to the bottom of it and all. They didn't. I don't think they charged them or something. I think Ian Wright was just, wanted to educate him and everything. But it's across the board, Rory. It is this racist, racist incidents, and it's never going to go away, in my opinion. We're never going to have a society that's, going to accept everyone for what they are. Do you know what I mean? You look at England, and I'll go back to the England fans because we're talking about England fans here. Is that you look at when the players took the knee? I think it was the first game. A lot of them are built. A lot of them are built for taking the knee. Do you know what I mean? We're in a situation now where it's got, like, social media. You should have to have your account linked to something. If I'm going to a different country, I need to show ID. If I want to buy a drink and I don't look, if I look under 25, I have to show ID. Do you know what I mean? Now, if I want to set up a social media account, I don't have to do one. You can just set up as many as you want. I could call myself Mary if I wanted to. And like, you look at, like, I will track it through the IP addresses and all. But what if I wanted to go into a Starbucks or something, sit there as Mary on my social media account and racially abuse someone. Am I ever going to be traced?
And that's what's happening, Glenn. You don't even need to go to Starbucks. You can get the VPN things that change your location for you on your computer.
Yeah.
And you're right, man. It's people setting up fake pages and it's bots that are just automating these messages to send to their profiles every time they post. And that's how easy they can do it. I think you're right. I think it's going to take a long time for anything really to happen. But we people need to be educated, just like Ian Wright educated that young fella. Education always has to be there, and that's be a process. And I think it needs to start very young age. You know, I don't think Brexit has helped the matter. There's a lot of racism coming out of Brexit, and that whole campaign, and now we're seeing that kind of come into other aspects of life. You know.
But Rory, the reason why I don't think racism will ever be taken out of society as a whole is because, you know, if you called someone of a different nationality or a different colour or whatever a name with a racial slur on it, that you are racist. And I think it's so easy to do that, to call someone a name, that it'll never ever be out of society. But the likes of the social media companies, they're the ones that need to, you know, take their finger out basically and put things into place where it's being challenged all the time. And they haven't done that enough.
No, they haven't done enough. I think they are being challenged by say, European bodies are subjecting them to, like, how are you fixing these problems or these social issues that are happening on your platform? Because, Glenn, it happens with racism, but it also happens generally with bullying on social media. You know, people will find something to bully about, whether it's your race, your culture, you know, what clothes you wear, your sexuality. There's always going to be something, you know. I think what we can do is we can just keep bringing it up on this podcast and share how we're against it and support the players at United for the players that they are and what they bring to the club, because it's all positive in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think, Rory, you look at the Rashford memorial in Manchester. That was basically the face.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you look at what happened then. People came out, put up messages of support. I'm not sure of the bloke's name that actually, you know, spray painted the memorial, but he came back out and fixed it up and all. So there definitely is, you know, strong support out there when it comes to issues like this. But again, I just think that there's never enough done about it. You know what I mean? And there never will be enough done about it. That's just it's just unfortunate. But we'll see where we go in the future, I suppose, with it. You know what I mean? See what happens.
Yeah, and we'll see how it affects Rashford. Like, he's been through a lot. That's a bad way to end a football season, like, you know. So we will see how. Then he's going into an operation, like you said. So we'll see how he is come the new season, come October, when he's kind of.
I think, Rory, it's a good thing for him to take that step back with him. Do you know what I mean? He's been like in the United first team now for the last couple of years. He's been, you know, a number one starter, really, do you know that way? And as I said, we've run him into the ground. He's a bad ankle. Apparently, before the Europa League final, his ankle was at the swelling out and everything. His shoulder injuries at him. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for him to just to have them operations done and come back 110%. And maybe within that time, if he doesn't come back till October, you know what I mean? You're about 8 or 9 games in. It might do us the world of good to have a player like that coming back into the fold. And it'll definitely do him the world of good just to take a step away for a while. Because as you said, Rory, he's been doing a lot of stuff on the pitch. He's been doing a lot of stuff off the pitch. Maybe he needs to just focus on himself there for a while. Do you know what I mean? Get himself back up to the top, like.
I think it'll do him good, yeah, Glenn. I prefer it if he wasn't getting an injury and maybe just taking time off, you know, like getting surgery, because that has its own toll to bring, you know, like you can't stay fit. You need to get your fitness back up.
Yeah, but these surgeries are probably nothing, though. It's probably a nothing surgery, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like, it's probably there's probably no, look, I don't want to say there's no recovery time in it, you know what I mean, but I wouldn't say it's not too major. But these things happen. You look at the likes of Michael Owen and all that. He was run into the ground by Liverpool. He's run into the ground by England. And look the way his career finished. Yeah. So you wouldn't want that for Rashford. So You know, you want to see him being taken. And look, I would have liked him to see last year. Or you'd want to be in a position for United when we have the squad there that's you're able to rest your big players and you're bringing players in that's of the same quality. That's one of the things we had for years under Fergie. I know it's easier said than done, but now you'd like to think now that we're putting a squad together, or Ollie's assembling the squad, that you can leave players out to recuperate. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, like, you look at it, Rashford should have been playing in the Europa League final when you hear stories of his ankle blown out like a balloon. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine? Like, he was just in pain. There was he wasn't enjoying that. So you're not getting the best out of any footballer unless they're enjoying what they're doing, really. Do you know what I mean? It's just frustration.
Talking about what Ollie might bring in, I suppose he's trying to build something good, it looks like, with Sancho coming in and, you know, other players on the cards to come in. And there's also coach Eric Ramsay. Is he the former Chelsea coach?
Yeah.
Coming in to do that.
He's coming in, he's going to be working on set pieces, which is something that we struggled with over the last couple of years, not just last year. But if you were to go on last year alone, Roddy, you've seen it. No Maguire in the Europa League final, that's where Villarreal's goal came from. But even when Maguire was in the team, think about that game against Everton at Old Trafford, conceding in the last minute. So obviously, Ollie's identified what we need to change, and he's bringing a chap in, Eric Ramsay, that's highly thought of over in England. I think he's the youngest Brit to get his UEFA Pro license. It's the highest coaching badge you can get. So, you know, the fact that he's young and all, and that he wanted to come to the club, it's exciting. Do you know what I mean? Have someone that's, you know, I don't want to say learning, but has his own take and bringing his own philosophies into probably the way, you know, you defend set pieces. So it's exciting in that regard, and I'm glad to see that we're putting things in place for situations like that, because I think Leeds were the only one that had a worse goal ratio from set players than us. Only Leeds did.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean? And there was this report there that, you know, goals scored and, you know, goals conceded actually equated to a point in the game. Do you know what I mean? There was a report done. I can't explain.
Yeah.
There was a report done where, you know, like, there was, you know, I think it was 10,000. I think it was 1,058 goals or something scored, and there was 1,048 points, you know, towards them goals, like something like that. So, yeah, it's good that we're getting we're bringing this. We're looking to sort, you know, issues out that have come up.
Yeah, big time. And I hear
the last one.
Well, I heard I read that he also might work with them individually, one-on-one. I think it'd be good as well, you know, fresh eyes, like you said. So it's interesting to see where we're going, Glenn, and what we're trying to build. And I suppose if we do, I haven't heard much on the Varane story. Have you heard anything? I've just heard it's kind of prolonging itself.
Yeah, look, this is going to drag on now. Apparently, you know, we're getting to the stage where Varane's representatives have come out and said that, you know, he is going to end up at Old Trafford, and they've told Real Madrid that he's, you know, he does want to try something new. So who knows? But then, you know, United have come out and said that they're not going to overpay for Varane because of the current circumstances with COVID and everything like that, and that, you know, the deal should be structured on his contractual situation, which means he only has a year left. So I can't see Real Madrid wanting him to run down his contract, because they've reported losses there during the week of over 300 million. So if you can get 50 million for Varane, why not take it? And also, it just leaves them opened up, because in January, Varane would be out. If he was to stay at Madrid and not sign a contract in January, he'd be allowed to go and, you know, open talks with another club. But I think, you know, if he's there for 50 million, Roddy, you've said this loads of times, go and get him. Because by the time it comes to January, you know what I mean, anyone could be in from PSG. You know, they're the team that seem to be, you know, on the build, really. They're trying to bring in all the best players they can. Their goals to try and win the Champions League. If your goals to try and win the Champions League, you want to have players that have won it a couple of times in your squad. I know they've done that with Sergio Ramos. But when you look at Varane, like, he's 28. I said it before, it's probably his last big contract in terms of years. You probably get him on a 5-year deal till he's 33. A lot of people out there that I've read have said, oh, you know, he's past it, or he's 28, you know, and be paying that for a 28-year-old. But then you look at it and you say to yourself, look at Chiellini and Bonucci. What age are they? Do you know what I mean? They're still going strong. Like, so if there's a chance of getting a player like Varane and go and get him.
I think Varane's going to be the difference between us winning a trophy and not winning a trophy, because Sancho's great now, but he's young and he's filling into a part of the pitch that, yeah, it's great to have him there and he'll add a lot, but Jesus, that defence, man, like...
Yeah, it's okay. You can't be going into season again with Lindelof for centre-back. You can't be doing it.
Yeah,
if you want a challenge, can't do it. I've nothing against Lindelof. You know, I thought last year in the Europa League, in a lot of the games in the Europa League, he was very good. I thought in the Euros, he was very good for Sweden. But it's different than playing in the Premier League. And the pressure that comes with playing for United week in, week out. And I know when you say playing for United, he was playing the Europa League, but I think that's genuinely is level. We haven't seen that from Lindelof that suggests that, you know, there's a big improvement there. And I think that's the finished article now. So we have to ask ourselves, is that what we want? You know what I mean? And then you're looking, you're saying, Tuanzebe's there. There's talks of him going on loan to Villa. Now there's talks of him going on loan to Newcastle. But if we can't get the likes of Varane in, which would be, I'd be disappointed if you couldn't get Varane in, because there's so much coverage on it now. You'd be thinking to yourself that, you know, something is in place for him to come in. But if he didn't, I'd be saying to yourself, why not just give Tuanzebe the chance, starting from the beginning of the season, and let him learn with us. It probably won't go away. You know, there's probably going to be a couple of mistakes in there, but I think he's a solid player. So we can't get Varane, Tuanzebe, but we should be getting Varane over the line. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. The Varane situation is kind of similar to a situation we're in ourselves, I suppose, with Pogba. So his contract's up next year. Now you love Pogba, Glenn. And we've talked about it, I suppose, and my opinion is that we should probably let him go. Now, there is talks about a contract being offered to Pogba to stay on for, I think, another 4 years, or we have the opportunity to sell him off this year for a good bit of profit, maybe to PSG, or we lose him next year to God knows who. Glenn, do you think Pogba will sign a new contract, is the question. Not your opinion on should he or should he not, because I know your opinion on that. I don't. But what do you reckon? Should he? Do you think he will?
If he's getting over 400 grand a week, he will.
Is that what's being offered?
That's over 400 grand a week is being offered. And don't get me wrong, look, I don't think any player is worth 400 grand a week. Now forget about if it's Pogba or not. I don't think any player should be worth that. And I know Ray has said this before, we're trying to get away from that. You know, paying players way over what they're worth. And I know Ray is probably listening somewhere. Hi Ray. But I know for a fact that I don't think Ray would like to see Pogba sign on for over 400 grand a week, because I remember when we signed Sanchez, I was getting 450 grand a week. And I remember when that came out, I remember talking on the phone to Ray, and Ray was like, Glenn, that's not going to work out. And he was right. You know what I mean? Where does the motivation come from when you're guaranteed to get that money? So, do I think he's going to sign a contract? Yeah, I do.
If it's at that.
Yeah, I think if they can work out that, you know, get their teams over the line, yeah. I think if we do offer him that and he does sign it, I think it smacks of desperation from us. There seems to be a big fear from the club to lose Pogba. And I don't know why. Because he hasn't been a part of a team that's, you know, had success really. All he won the Europa League, the League Cup. Great. But we haven't sustained anything really from that. So, I think we should just, you know, cut our losses really on that one.
I think you said it there, Glenn. If we pay him, what's his motivation to play like well? Because we're paying him that amount of money. He's at his peak contract. Like that's the amount. That's a huge amount to be earning. But what's his motivation at the moment? Because he doesn't seem to have any.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Roddy. Like, I mean, it's not as if it's a player that as I keep saying this every week we talk about this. I'm saying to myself, like, it's not a player that runs himself into the ground or anything like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't offer anything like that. And it's just a dangerous precedent to be setting if you want to keep a player like Pogba for over 400 grand a week. Because what's Bruno for? What would Bruno be worth then?
Yeah.
You know, apparently we're going into contract talks with Bruno, you know what I mean, to extend his deal and everything, which is great. But if Pogba is getting 400 grand a week, so Bruno be on that level. Would he? I think he would.
I think he'd be on more. He should be on more than Pogba, if you ask me.
Yeah, so you're putting a wage structure in place where you're just going to be left at a stage where players are just coming for the money, and I know we want to try and get away from that. So
yeah, and I suppose you don't even have to be performing too well to get that type of money. You know, that's what we're saying. Like, we'll take once you're in the door, like we'll take it.
Roddy, it shows you the balls that Pogba and his agent have to be coming up. Wait, like, I mean, who came up with this figure? Do you know what I mean? I know nothing about negotiations or anything like that, but like, I know for a fact if I was in there, I'd be just like laughed him out the door.
Yeah, and Ray was making a strong point there during the Euros. You know, you see him with France and he has the players around him and blah blah blah. But then, and he scored a goal. He scored a goal in that game, but he also in that last game he also made the mistake that kind of ended it for him.
Yeah, but Rory, like, you know, Rabio gave him that ball with 3 players around him and all, and never called him or gave him a shout or anything. No, look, that's always going to be the debate where you're going to be talking about Pogba and whether he had the players around him or not. I'll say it again. If you're world class, right, and you want to be seen as world class, you're going to drag the team through whatever. Mightn't always work. We've seen that with Steven Gerrard at Liverpool. I've said this before. Never was surrounded by great players. Or you go back to Mascherano and Alonso and Torres. That was a great team for Gerrard to be involved in. But through the majority of his career, he dragged Liverpool over the line. Do you know what I mean? You know, getting Champions League football, the Champions League final, all that sort of stuff.
And Glenn, you support Liverpool because you bring Gerrard up a lot.
No, because I find it's the easiest comparison to make. Do you know what I mean? When you're thinking about modern day football and you're thinking about players not having the players around them, which Pogba hasn't. But there's been never, you know, anything in Pogba's play to suggest that he's there, you know, trying to motivate the players or anything. Do you know what I mean? There's always just been that arrogance about him.
With France, it proved that even with the players around him, he's not playing to the best of his ability.
Yeah,
there's something stopping him, and it could be arrogance or immaturity that people talk about. But
the want, Rory, it's the want, it's the desire to do it. He doesn't have it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like, how many times does he lose the ball or and not bother his bollocks to track back? And that's just been a consistent theme from him. Do you know what I mean? And I just don't understand why we keep, you know, making it out like we can't lose him. You know what I mean? Which gives him all the power. Do you know that way? Like, we're at a situation now where we value him at around 50 million. Okay, that's grand, no problem. If we can get 50 million for him, take it. Because if he doesn't sign a new deal, Roddy, right? If he goes into negotiations with a club, say like PSG in January, that's going to derail their whole season. Whether we're doing well or we're not doing well, he would be the one that's, you know, taking the spotlight. And I think he's done that since he's been at the club. With his hair, with his dancing. And I know, you know, I don't want to keep bringing Ray into it. I know Ray says, look, he doesn't care about that. And he's right, you shouldn't care about that. But it's stuff like that you recognise him for because he just doesn't do enough on the pitch. Do you know that way? Like, I mean, if you look at this season, at the end of the last season, you know, he done well for us. But that was his 5th season.
Yeah, and to be doing well,
came in.
Doing well isn't enough. Like, is basically what I'm hearing you say. And Glenn, you're right. I'd agree with a lot of that, and I suppose he does have great qualities as a player. Though it's just what he doesn't make up for kind of holds him back.
Right, but listen, Ravel Morrison has great qualities. Do you know what I mean? Like, he used to play for United, came through the academy, and he's training with Derby now. I think he's 29 or something around. I'm not too sure of his age, but it's his 12th club. But you talk to anyone, you talk to Wayne Rooney. Like, when Wayne Rooney was talking about him, he says that he was better than Pogba. Do you know what I mean? He was better. He was the best player in that class. Do you know what I mean? Like, but he didn't. He had the quality, but he hadn't got it. He couldn't produce it on the pitch. So you can have the attributes and all that, but if you're not willing to, if you can't put it out there week in, week out for a club of very size, then you're not good enough. Do you know what I mean? And if Pogba wants to go off and, you know, end his career at PSG or whatever, so be it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're guaranteed to win the league. I know they didn't win it this year, but they'll win it. They'll win it next season, no doubt about it, with or without Pogba. But if you want to go and be challenged, then you challenge yourself in the best league in the world, with the biggest club in the world, us. But he's been making a mockery of that for years. And I think it'd be just, the irony would be unbelievable of the fact that, you know, we let him go on a free in 2012, and he could end up going for a free now. So he's made a show of us, really. He made a show of the club twice. Do you know what I mean? Which is not a good look for the club, Rory.
Yeah.
Look, I'd love to know what Pogba says to the French players in the dressing room when the likes of a couple of years ago, Griezmann was linked with us when Mourinho was there. I'd love to know what Pogba was saying about the club, like what he would say in his own time. Like, is it a good place to be? Do you know that way? Like, because any time I look at Pogba, I just seem to think that he thinks it was a mistake for him to come back to us from Juventus.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the way I say. But look, to answer your question, no, go on. No, go on.
No, listen, I know what you're saying, and I suppose it's not fair for us to be butchering Pogba when Ray's not here to defend him, because, you know, if he is listening, he's probably crying.
I'm sure he's listening somewhere, yeah.
His ears are gone red with the sound of Pogba's name. But, yeah, Glenn, listen, I'm on board with you. My opinion's quite similar to yours. I do agree with Ray that Pogba has a lot of ability. He has shown a lot of it for United, but at the end of the day, I think you're right. His heart isn't with United. I don't know where it is, but I think it probably is time to let him go. I think that's all we're going to cover this week in this podcast. You know, we got through a lot, and I'm actually very excited for the next month and a half, Glenn, on, you know, seeing a bit of pre-season, and seeing what happens in the transfers, and seeing if we're bringing in any more staff, just like Eric Ramsay. What's going to happen there? What's Solskjaer building?
Yeah.
And we might be saying something very special here, and I'm glad we get to cover it on this podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting times. I think the pre-season games start on Saturday or Sunday or something. I think we're playing Derby this weekend, aren't we?
Is it? Yeah, well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you know what I mean. Obviously, the players that were at the Euros and all won't be there, but the likes of Matt and all, he'll be there. Tellez will be there. So yeah, there's lots of excitement.
Yeah,
we're just under a month now to the Premier League starts, so I can't wait for us to get back into that. You know what I mean? Matches, weekly podcast, a whole lot of it. So yeah,
definitely. Well, listen, man. I'll chat to you soon anyway before the next one. But we're back next Thursday, same place. You can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts. If you want to follow us on Facebook, we're at The Devil's Bit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, listen, it's been great chatting to you, Glenn, and talk to you soon.
See you later, man. Right?